Good morning. Good morning. For you, Steph, we're still 4 minutes morning. It's afternoon
Four
for me.
minutes
How
of
are you?
morning, and then we're gonna have a big celebration because it's gonna become afternoon, and then that's a really big deal around here.
We have to remember that. So think Stephanie's filling in as you guys know for Chris. Chris is out. So our job today, Stephanie, is to embarrass the hell out of Chris and make sure that he feels guilty for not being here. It's
Did you kick him
not good.
out?
Sorry?
Is he gone because you kicked him off the show?
You say that like I have any control on where Chris shows up. I was going to do this episode by myself, and he just showed up on the first one, and then I can't get him off. So I don't really have a choice. But thank you for filling in. Today, I'm excited about this episode. I'm going to go ahead and kick it off. So ever wonder why some founders seem to effortlessly navigate chaos while others crumble under pressure? Back in 1973, Ray Dalio had just blown up his hedge fund and lost everything. Instead of blaming the market, he turned inward, setting his own decision-making patterns, emotional triggers, and cognitive biases. That brutal self-reflection became the foundation of Bridgewater's principles and eventually a $160 billion industry. Today, on How to Founder, we'll be talking about personal growth. I'm Anthony Franco, and with me today is my lovely co-host, Stephanie. And joining us is Eric McHugh, a serial founder and conscious-driven creator building at the intersection of AI, Web3, and human potential. With an IQ north of 40 and north of 140, and experience scaling startups from Snap to his current ventures, Eric proves that inner work and outer success aren't mutually exclusive. They're indispensable. Eric, thank you so much for being on with us today. Nice to have you on.
Dude, I'm really grateful to be here, and I can tell by the conversation we had prior to the show, this is going to be an awesome one. And not to mention, I do need to reread Principles. Also a great book.
Yeah, it's a great book. So no pressure. This has to be a good show now.
I know. I think I have to go.
Wait to,
Well, there goes
way
the
to
show
set
being
us
good.
up.
Yeah, let's keep her here.
All right, listen, Eric, you want to put your IQ north of 40, as Anthony pointed out in his intro. Rereading the book, I think, is going to be a really good idea.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think reading is one of the most helpful things because I found that, first off, you get to learn from some of the smartest people in the world, which is like Ray Dalio put a lot of time, effort, and energy into creating that book. And if you can pick up nuggets from him, fantastic. And rereading is really helpful because you're going to miss a bunch of stuff the first time. And then you'll pick it up the second time, just rewires those neural pathways. So like, I've always found it's better to reread a good book than start 10 different books you're not interested in. So like rereading a great book, good thing to do.
Well, so you're leading right into it. So your reading dovetails directly into personal growth. So first of all, as a founder, let me ask you a really softball question. Why should I care about personal growth more or as much as business growth?
Oh, because they're completely tied together. If you think about it logically, as a founder, first off, I think people are happiest when they're serving other people. So as a founder, your goal is to serve as many people at scale. And the best way to do that is to focus on personal growth. Because if you're not growing as a founder, what makes you think your company is going to grow? Probably won't. But the thing is, the more you grow, the bigger you are, the more the path reveals itself. So if you're focusing on personal growth as a company, your company will grow alongside with you. So for example, if I have a company, prior to rereading Principles, I read Principles, you can bet your ass that the stuff I learned from Ray Dalio will be either incorporated consciously or subconsciously into the company I'm building.
Wait, that's counterintuitive. So in order to grow yourself, you need to focus on serving others? Talk a little bit more about that.
Correct. Yeah. So like, I think people are happiest when they're serving other people. So if you have the intention to serve others, that's going to be good for you in the long run because you're happiest when you're doing that. And if you want to serve other people, if you want to serve the most amount of people at scale, how do you do that? The only way to do that is to be your authentic self. And the reason for that is I believe in the power of authenticity. So I'm the number one me in the world. Stephanie's the number one her in the world, probably a bunch of other stuff too. And you're the number one Anthony in the world. If I try to be you, I can't beat you at being you because you're Anthony. You're number one in the world at it. But at the same time, you can't beat me at being me. So if my goal is to be happy, and the best way to be happy is to serve as many people as possible, the only way for me to, or the logical way for me to do that is to be my authentic self, which grows with personal growth.
So, Steph, curious what you think. I hear this authentic self thing quite a bit. What does that mean to you?
So you're right up my alley here, Eric, and I'm sitting here nodding away because when a lot of the work that I do with my clients, I have to convince them over and over again that the best thing you can do for your business is to get to know yourself and become more aware of yourself and who you are as a business owner, who you are as a human being, who you want to show up as inside your business. And the work that we do kind of brings them right back to that and starts that investigation from the beginning, because we're often taught to build businesses through textbooks and through like frameworks and that sort of thing. But when your authentic self is not part of your business, you're building a business that you don't really like, right? Or maybe you just don't really connect with and there's no alignment there. So I think what you're saying is hits the nail right on the head in the sense that, a founder, and I think increasingly more so as we go, I think a founder needs to be a human first and needs to understand who they are as a human being first. And that self-awareness is what drives the energy and the passion inside the business. Do you agree?
100%. Thank you for that.
Yeah. And so what are some of the best tools that we can use in terms of becoming more self-aware as business owners? I think there's lots of personal development tools out there to become better human beings. And I think people tend to put those in separate buckets, but I absolutely agree with you that there's so much overlap there. So what are the tools that are best or that can help a founder become more self-aware of themselves as a business owner?
Steph, your audio is a little bit off. Eric, were you following the question though?
I was able to hear, but her audio is a bit off.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, if you kind of was tracking the question, I'll let you pipe in.
Yeah, so I would say the biggest tools for self-awareness is awareness itself, and I like to be aware of the content I consume. So whether that's people around, books I listen to, podcasts I listen to, video content playing in the background, even the music, it's all part of your content diet. And if there's something in your diet that takes away energy from you, I let it go. But if something that adds energy, I continue and I double down on that. The biggest and most helpful tool I've ever done is meditation, because that's literally just inner work. And I was very fortunate to attend a 10-day Vipassana meditation retreat in Joshua Tree, California. And so what that is, it's the method that the Buddha used to reach enlightenment. So it's 10 days, full silence, no looking at anyone, no talking with anyone, no writing, no electronics, just 10 days of full meditation. And what you do is you scan your body back and forth over and over again. And this brings the traumas that you stored in your body to the surface. So that inner work just, it gets rid of a lot of the traumas you've stored through this lifetime in particular. And that became a really big base for me. And I think meditation is the most helpful thing I've done. And I do this every morning. So I wake up around 4:20. I find it funny. I wake up at 4:20 because I find it funny. I start my day with a meditation, and I close the meditation with storing all the energy in my head, or like all the energy in my crown chakra, and wishing everyone in the world peace, love, and happiness. And the reason this is so important is I think of everything is energy, frequency, and vibration. So when you're saying I'm angry, I'm loving, I'm hateful, I'm helpful, all you're saying is I'm vibrating at this specific frequency. So just like a radio station, when you turn to a specific radio station, you get that frequency. So that's why angry people always attract angry people, cheating people always attract cheating people, loving people always attract loving people. So with my meditation and practice, I'm genuinely wishing everyone the best. And then coincidentally, that's resulted in me meeting people naturally who also wish me the best. And in terms of networking, that's a much better way to do things. Like imagine this, you're going to like a networking event, like there's investors there, like you're going there to either like, I'm gonna get as much as I can from this person. That business partnership is not likely to succeed. But if you go there like, oh, how can I help you? How can I help you? And then that's a more wholesome and relationship that is likely to work. So meditation really helps. Something I like to do is I believe in the power of speech. So I believe that everything starts as a thought first. Thoughts have weights. So if you say something, you're actually programming the universe to whatever you say. That could be a good thing or a bad thing. So you won't ever catch me talking bad about myself or other people, because I think that's just setting myself up for success affairs. I'm very conscious of that. And another thing I love to do is journaling. I like to write everything down because that helps me manifest it faster. But something I really like to do that's very easy and very actionable is the first thing I do right when I wake up, like prior to my meditation, is I reach out to my journal. I write 3 things I'm grateful for, whatever I feel like. And it's usually something simple. It's like, I have water, my legs work, there's a roof over my head. And that puts me in the right mindset for the day, because gratitude is a very high vibration. And you want to be, and again, like, I think people know this. It's like, if you're grateful for stuff, you get more stuff. If you're not grateful, you get less stuff. So might as well be grateful.
So I'm going to pop in here just because this is really resonating with me. Is my sound better, by the way?
Yeah, your sound's better.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I just had to move my mic. So I've been on this spiritual practice for the last, let's say, year. And I come from the world of being a very much a pragmatist, and I'm not a religious person. And so this idea of spirituality connecting to my business was new to me. And there was an individual I became connected to, and she's sort of taught all of this and how important it is to generating wealth and generating. And so down this road of this practice, it's become so clear that, the intentions and the space that you put your head in and what you believe in has become so important in terms of your success in business. So I'm curious. So for the folks who are, still way over here in, I come from the tech industry and, in these very pragmatic and business focused mindsets, taking a step to a 10-day retreat in Joshua Tree is going to be like a really big step for them. But what are some incremental first toe in the water kind of, tactics or activities that a business owner can take on that will at least get them started in the practice of meditation, of intentionality, of, all of the sort of the energy stuff that you and I probably are well aware of already, and journaling and that sort of thing. Like, nobody's going to dive. I mean, maybe they will, but most people are going to want to see and understand and like get a sense of the small incremental habits that can start to make significant changes for them.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm really happy that you're practicing your spiritual practice. I think having a spiritual practice is one of the most helpful things to you and everyone as a collective. So the more people on their spiritual practice, the better it is. And honestly, that's why I like going on podcasts, because I think spirituality gets a bad rap where it's like, no, we're not just some people meditating in the forest with like no running water or anything. No, we're actually running businesses. And like you, and I have a good story about what got me into spirituality first is, and I think this is really important to highlight. So when I was much younger, one of my first startups was in an incubator, and it was one of the best incubators in the world. So the company next to our startup was actually Liquid Death Mountain Water. And for your listeners, an incubator is essentially startup school. So it's just a clump of startups next to a clump of startups next to a different clump of startups. And our incubator is structured where the more successful your startup is, the higher you go up in the building and you get a nicer floor. So at a very young age, at that point in time, I was go. I was at the office at like 6, leaving at 8, like no lunch. Who needs lunch? It's dumb. But I networked my way through that whole building. I was so blessed to meet so many different founders in different companies and different verticals at different stages. And I've noticed that all the successful ones had a spiritual practice. So like I remember this one time I specifically wanted to meet someone. I was like, hey, what are you do you want to grab lunch? No, I have to do a meditative walk. I'm like, what do you mean you have to do a meditative walk? It's like Tuesday at like 1:30. Don't you have to do something? He's like, no, this is my meditation time. And obviously I ignored it for a while, but then the right content, the right people, the right things kept showing in my sphere. And then eventually I just kind of went all in. And honestly, I think my spirit, I think, but don't get me wrong, I love the businesses. I think everyone has an inner purpose and everyone has an outer purpose. I think everyone's inner purpose is the same, whether they realize it or not. And that's to raise their own level of collective consciousness. And what does this do? It raises the collective consciousness of everyone around them. So like if I raise my vibe, I interact with you guys, raises your vibe, you go out in the world, you interact with your people, it raises their vibe, and it creates like a nice positivity upward spiral. And I think everyone's outer purposes is how do your natural God-given gifts, your authentic God-given gifts, not your programmed desires that you think you need to do, which is why if you work on something you don't really care about, it's not likely to do well. I think how do your outer purposes, how do your natural gifts help your inner purpose, which is raise your own consciousness level and raise those around them. And to answer your question after that long-winded intro, the best thing to do is meditation. It's hard at first. I start with binaural beats, so that just puts your beats.
What's a binaural beat?
Oh, Anthony, don't be embarrassing.
No,
Look, I'm one of those founders that's like, this meditation stuff, I don't believe in it. And then now that I've like, I've started listening to a lot more podcasts and getting involved in my own growth. I find myself doing it, and one of the things that I do is I just go out, take my shoes off, and touch grass, just walk in grass for a while. So I didn't believe that was a thing, and I was like, actually, I feel better at the end of the day when I just remember to do that. So forgive. I'm glad I'm ignorant here because I'm learning a ton. So again, for those that don't know, what's binaural beats?
Yeah, no, I think first of all, touching grass is a great thing. I very fortunate live in PV. I like to go as many nature walks as I can, especially during the week. Like if I want to take an hour for a nature walk and touch some grass, there's not once have I regretted doing that. Every single time, like I'm glad I did that. And binaural beats are something I found in college too that helped me study. I didn't even know what it was at that point in time, but they're essentially just different frequencies that you place in. Like if you YouTube binaural beats, you'll see a bunch of different ones. They are sounds within your ears that force your brain at specific frequencies, so they can help healing, they can help studying, they can help happiness. It's really what you're looking for.
So I could just record my voice, Anthony, over and over again. You could just listen to that. It would be really calming and soothing for you, and it would put you in the right mindset, probably.
Yeah.
Your voice. So are you an author of binaural beats?
No, it's really interesting. It's science, right? It's like these. It's really good for people who are neurodivergent. I'm ADHD. I'm medicated, and so that works. But it's these dual channels, and it's constructed in such a way that it forces your brain to do certain things depending on which frequency. So, like there is even studies out there. Like my husband has cancer right now, and he's going through cancer treatments, and there's a whole frequency that's meant to really, really help with recovery from chemo and radiation. And then there are other frequencies that are good for focusing and that sort of thing. If I'm getting it right, Eric.
No, you seem to have a much better handle the actual technicals behind it. I just know it works. And like, if you're just getting into meditation, I know meditation can be kind of a hard thing. They really help the first people start. And another tip on meditation is like just start. It's going to be hard at first. When you first start meditation, like just do like for 5 minutes, treat your body like a dog. I mean, like you're going to sit for 5 minutes in silence, and whatever comes up, because your brain is going to start making excuses like, I need to get a piece of water, or I need to get a drink, I need to check my email. But you're like, no, body, you're going to sit for 5 minutes and you're going to do this thing because it's helpful. And if you believe it's helpful, it's helpful. The way I like to think of meditation, it's like an email inbox. Like both of you, if you don't check your email inbox for like years, the first time you open it, you're just going to be bombarded with emails over and over again, and it's going to get overwhelming. So with meditation, it's like your thoughts. If you haven't meditated ever, you're going to start like, this is dumb, and you're just going to get hit with thought after thought after thought after thought. But after a consistent practice of meditation, you address each thought one by one, and your email inbox gets clearer and clearer, and your brain gets calmer and calmer. And ironically, I probably butchered that word, but in business, it's obviously much better to make decisions with a calm mind anyway. So it helps with that too.
Yeah, I'm feeling stressed out about doing it's causing me stress to think about doing what you just said I should do. Much like if I were walk away from my inbox for a year and the stress required to just think about that, being alone with my thoughts and not actually building or doing something gives me stress.
It's funny. I do Muay Thai too, and my coach, it's a funny thing. He's like, whenever there's a new guy like visiting from the trip, like because it was like a pro gym where like random people would come and train and stuff. And so whenever there's a new guy who came and trained from different gym, he's like, "What do you not want to do right now?" And then he would say something, "I don't want to do cardio. I don't want to kick the bag. I don't want to do heavy work." And he's like, "Well, that's what you're doing, because that's what you need most right now." So what you just kind of reminded me of that. It's like, if that's stressing you out,
maybe I should be doing that first.
Yeah, you grow in the unknown, and then
there's a lesson in here. There's a lesson in here, right? Because Anthony is your typical founder, and he, probably is in the same headspace that a lot of founders are, where it's just like, go, do. All of my success is tied to what I'm doing. What I've learned is that there's sort of these three sort of corners of a triangle. There's what I believe, what I have, and what I do. And we all get stuck in the what I'm doing. I'm trying to do so much stuff. But when you can force yourself to get back into what do I believe and what do I have, those are the two things that are actually more important to success than sort of like shoehorning in as much effort as you possibly can. And so back to like in light of Anthony's comments, Eric, I'm all in on everything that you're talking about, and I have practice and that sort of thing. But for the people who are still kind of going, well, I'm not making I get that if I can build this practice, I have a better mindset, but what's that going to do for my business? Like, how is that actually going to help me in growing my business? What's the payoff?
Yeah, so and I like you said that because like when I first started too, like I understood everything conceptually. I'm like, yeah, meditation helps your brain, it'll make you calmer, it'll make you just smarter. But what really got me over the edge was for me, as like again, I think everything happens for a reason. And part of the reason I was placed on the incubators, I've seen the effects it had on those people, on their businesses, like how their spiritual practice how that helped raise their business. And because I saw it, I was able to believe it. And then that's kind of how it worked for me. But yeah, no, like just having a spiritual base as a business, I think is incredibly important. Because again, if you're happy serving other people, having a spiritual base as your business, it'll factor into all your decisions, like your product, your marketing, your sales. If you go out there with the intention of helping people, you're gonna get people who help you back, and you're gonna get more clients that way, anyways. So the thing, like, it's one of those things, like you'll believe it when you see it, and the way you see it is you start doing it. How do you start doing it? You become it first.
I'm Go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I was going to say, like, you're coming at something that we talk about on this podcast all the time, but at a different angle, and that is, we talk about this thing about focus on your customer, have empathy for your customer, have empathy for the people that you're trying to build a product for, and what you're coming at it with a more of a spiritual lens that says, if you do that with authenticity, or if you do that and you really mean that you're trying to serve those people, like deep down, you're like, I'm going to switch the gears and not treat them as a persona, but treat my customers as an individual and try to serve them like I would try to serve my kids or serve somebody I love. You're going to have a better connection point into what their pain is and be able to solve their pain better. Did I connect those dots right, or am I way off?
No, you crushed it. Because the thing is, like, back to that networking example, if you go into a networking event thinking like, how do I get this from this someone? How do I get this money from this person? People pick up on that subconscious, doesn't go well. Whereas
like, commission breath. Yeah.
Like, no, that's a good way to put it. But if you're trying to serve people, it's like you better connect with them. And on top of that, as an early age startup, you know how important it is to have that core group of customers. Because like when you first started, like at least for me, I've come from tech. It's like when you first start, the tech's not even working most of the times. What keeps them around? It's their connection with the customers, and then you give feedback and you optimize from there. Then you get your core fan base, and then it helps grow from that way. And without having that spiritual practice, I think it'd been difficult for me to do so. Because like again, like some of my most fun times were like early stage startups. We'd have clients, it'd be like weed brand, and like it was like a weed brand called Ease. We'd invite the cannabis influencers into this fancy Santa Monica building to connect with them, and that created that customer loyalty. And they told all their friends about it. It spread naturally. We had some viral growth based on that, and that's all because we just wanted to meet them. Like we weren't trying to get anything more. I was like, hey, you're a cool person. Come down. Let's grab some lunch.
I think there's another side to this too, which is, Anthony makes a reasonable point about being able to connect to your customers. But I think as a leader and as a founder and as someone who has a team, one of our startups that we're working on right now is all around building teams for high growth companies in that sort, not necessarily startup, but like that post startup phase, based on the concept of a nature-based network, natural network that is found in mushrooms. And that's how humans also develop their own natural networks. And I think as a founder and as a leader of people, because you're always leading people, because you're not necessarily just doing this on your own, you as a leader becoming aware of your own beliefs and your own thoughts and your own limitations and your own understanding of sort of your place in the world is super, super important in terms of how your team is going to develop as well. So my partner leads, a large services company, and he's, it's been his company for 30 years. And he is just realizing now that, to get them to their next stage of growth, he needs the rest of the company to believe in the same things he's believing, right? And what he's doing is a lot of spiritual practice to understand himself and why he can believe it, but his people who are, very well developed are not necessarily believing it themselves. So you as a leader and being completely self-aware is going to help your business, the people who run your business, develop into the same level of energy and the same level of belief that you have. And I'll tell you, that makes a huge difference to selling. It makes a huge difference to delivery and whatever it is that you're building. And I think that's a really important perspective as well in terms of self-awareness. I also have a client who's building a practice to help business owners become more self-compassionate. And self-compassion, it's such an interesting perspective because self-compassion is an extremely valuable attribute for a leader as well. And I don't know if you can comment on those two things.
Yeah, no, I love everything you're saying. And I think the name of the game is servant leadership. So you're serving your team and they're serving you. So it's a mutual thing. And funny, a good exercise I would encourage everyone to do is to get down a piece of paper and write down what you love most in the world and see where you put yourself first. And most people don't even include themselves on that list. And about and what you mentioned with your friend who's building the business of like finding the right people, that's where the power of authenticity and the self-work comes in. Because without the self-work, it's hard to know what you actually want. And once you actually know what you want, you're your authentic self. And the cool thing about being an authentic self is two things. You repel the people you're meant to repel, which is a good thing. It's like maybe you don't get along with someone, great. You wish them the best, but they may not belong in your life. But you also attract the people you're meant to attract. And you can only really do that if you're your authentic self. And when you're building an early stage startup, I'll tell you, it's just much easier if everyone is on that same wavelength. And being your authentic self is how you get there.
I would really love to pull on that string a little bit more, Eric. And Stephanie, you brought up something really interesting, and that is involving your team in this process. So personal story, I'm not a hugger, but have turned into a hugger. Oh. I'll just it wasn't me. It was I needed my personal space, but all of a sudden, but now some people are uncomfortable with hugs, and and the reason why I bring that piece in is because what we're talking about, this bringing this spirituality into your organization can have this repelling effect. So how do you introduce these concepts to your team without, and I think, Eric, you answered a little bit, but I want you to dig a little bit deeper. Maybe they're not supposed to be a part of your team, or is there ways that you can do this delicately and slowly so that it doesn't completely disrupt how your organization works?
No, you're right. And I treat spirituality the same thing as crypto. Whereas if you want to get someone, and I have experience, like if you want to get someone into cryptocurrency, what's the worst thing you do? It's like, you need to buy Bitcoin. It's the most repellent thing you could possibly do.
I got it instantly. When you said that, I'm like, oh, okay, I get that, makes sense.
Spirituality is the same way. It's like, I would never go in and, hey guys, we're having this team meditation, but I just live the life I lead. It's part of the base. So my decisions are based off of that. And they like my decisions. They like the way I operate. They know it's something involved and they naturally ask out. And when they ask, I'm more than willing to help. But I've learned that trying to push spirituality, it has a complete opposite effect. Well, and it's like me as example, it's like I wasn't really, like with that VC incubator thing, I wasn't like really looking for it. It was just part of his natural day if he's doing his meditation walks. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. And then when the time was right, I eventually asked more about it. I followed up more about it. And then the right content started showing up to me over and over again. I got more and more into myself because I wanted to. And that eventually culminated with that Vipassana meditation retreat. Because like you said, like an entrepreneur, like the retreat's like 10 days, no phone, no nothing. Like for most people, myself included, that was completely unthinkable. I'm like, there's no way I can do 10 full days. But like after a while, like the third trusted source, he brought it up random. Like, okay, let's sign up. So like to answer the question, if you want people into spirituality, they have to want to learn about it themselves. And everyone's walking their own path as they should. So like you can't push anyone, you can't force anyone, but if they do want help, obviously do it.
Do you agree that there is a growing trend, and I hope it's not a trend, I hope it's just the way that we're evolving, that there is a greater interest in bringing like the human side of your life into business? Like if we talk about Web3 for an example, Web3 was developed actually as a way to, address a more human problem, right? Which is ownership of property and ownership of, I mean, that's very oversimplified.
Yeah.
And I don't mean property in terms of like physical property, but all of the rights and access that we have in, the digital world. Web3 was a way to, and the stuff that developed on DeFi and everything that developed on Web3. So where's that marriage of that, the sort of like the very technical and very businessy side of business and the human side of business? And do you think that those are evolving together? I just think they're inseparable.
I think everyone's related. I think oneness is, if you use AI to summarize all ancient texts, one of the biggest, like in all of the books, oneness is a thing. And if you're looking at the intersection between like humanists and business, the three of us and all entrepreneurs are doing that. So Web3 is its technical thing, but what marries it to the humanists, it's the human creating it, it's the user using the software. Because Web3 technology, all of it is inherently neutral. Like a knife can be used to cut a pie or hurt someone. It's up to the user and the builder. And I think the people using Web3 technologies, and I think the builders building Web3, I think enough of them have the right ethos where it's eventually going to help, I guess, raise our collective consciousness through products and services.
I'm really curious to broaden that, to take a broader view on this. And Eric, get your take on how is technology really changing the landscape of how we interact as human beings in a good way and a bad way? Like, how can we take some of what you're talking about and apply it to the good uses of AI or technology?
Yeah, sure. So if you don't mind, I can use my own dating app as an example.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, what dating, and I view overall human connectedness and like connections with other human, I think that's a really important part for overall human happiness. And I think social media, television, news, I think and dating apps have pushed that in the opposite direction. So what AI is, it's really good at pattern recognition at scale and just monitoring large data sets. So what dating is, it's the first ever AI-powered matchmaking service. What we do is we auto-generate dating profiles based on a user's digital footprint and their chat with Cupid, and then use those traits that are pulled from that to generate matches with the goal of connecting humans at a more deeper level. So for example, if me and Stephanie were on the app, it would likely pick up we're both into similar spirituality stuff and then matches based on that. And then we can form a human relationship after that, because the whole point of the app is to connect people who wouldn't have connected people prior, but on a much deeper level. So I think that's one way that AI is helping people.
Yeah, but is there some onus on the creators of technology to not lose our humanity in it?
100%. I think the human, like obviously the creators, when creating it, you're just channeling AI to hope. And that's why I think it's important for people to know that you're happiest serving other people. So if you're using, the cool thing about AI and new technology is you have a thought in your brain and it can manifest in the physical much faster. Like think about it, like 50 years ago, I was in the Philippines, I was born in the slums. That's likely where I was going to be. But now with AI, I can use AI I have this idea for an e-commerce brand. I can use it to make a website, write copy, create a logo, create a Shopify store, and start selling stuff. So I can do that much quicker. And if we as humans are getting better, because I think overall people are getting better and better, despite what the news is saying, but like if overall humans are getting better and better, they're getting kinder and kinder, they're getting more and more connected, which is a good thing. The people building the AI is just going to follow their creativity and their lead and then help more people. So yeah, there's definitely onus on the creator. I mean, you're creating the technology, you have to make it good for people.
Is there a way that we need to govern that though? Because there's this whole, just devil's advocate, there's this whole other side of AI, which is around ethics, which is around representation, which is around like if you're teaching a big AI model to just know a middle-aged white man as its model, right?
What's wrong with that?
That's another episode.
Okay. I have no problem with that. Keep going. Sorry, Stephanie.
Right. And so like the human side of AI, I think is super important. There's a lot of women that are leading those conversations because they're starting to see where the problems and the gaps might be. And so how do we do, is that something that needs to be governed? Is that something that needs to have some oversight? How do we ensure that all of those very important things are, because we're at risk of training a mental model, a computerized mental model to represent a very, very slim section of our demographic.
Yeah, and that's actually something that dating tried to tackle. Is like, for example, if we create a profile based on like your Instagram, it's gonna be completely different than your Twitter, than your Pinterest. So we try to incorporate as many data sources as we can to create that model. And to answer your question, I would say it naturally works itself out. Where, like, again, like if only one type of person is creating the AI, it's going to be serving that type of person. So having as many people create as many AIs as possible, it naturally learns and it naturally helps everyone. And my biggest fear is, I don't know, the governance is a really hard issue just because AIs are so much smarter and faster than us already. It's like the type of person who would want to govern is likely the type of person you don't want to control governing the whole thing. So like, so I say build it and let it work itself out, but I could be wrong. Again, it's up to the builders and the users. Like if overall they're good, then I think AI will be good. But if they're overall bad, then I think AI will be bad.
Awesome. I'm gonna ask one more question, and then we'll dive into the speed round. So, Eric, I'm struggling to formulate the question. I'll make it more simplified than that. So, all right, I've decided. Let's say I've decided, all right, I want to try this whole positive thinking thing and self-reflection and like you said meditation, like pretend I've never even done that. Pretend like what are the steps, the 1, 2, 3 the easy button to just kind of get you started on the journey of working on yourself?
Yeah,
Use crayons.
Yeah. Use crayons. Actually, color coding does
use
really
crayons to explain it.
The first thing I would do is take out a piece of paper and for like 30 minutes, an hour, just write down every thought that comes across your mind. Just don't judge them. Just write them down. And after you're done with that exercise, write a positive or minus next to the positive thoughts and next to the negative thoughts. And you notice different patterns in your thoughts. So you notice like one, for example, this meeting could lead to this thought, which sends you down a negative spiral. And you can kind of see where your head's at. So and highlight the positive ones. So if I did this too, like if your paper is mostly yellow, I think you're in a more positive headspace. But if a lot of people, surprisingly, it's just a lot more negative thoughts that you're not even aware of. And that brings you awareness to your negative thoughts. And then the second thing I would do is binaural beats. I think that's really helpful. And the thing about this is when you have a negative thought, you can never fight it. Because if whatever you resist persists. So if you try to fight that negative thought, it's just going to keep coming up and over again. So the way I like to look at the world is every situation is trying to teach me something. If I don't learn my lesson, the universe is going to keep sending that lesson over and over again until I eventually do learn it. So if I go into the mindset like I'm trying to learn from the specific situation, the quicker I learn it, the quicker from a more spiritual perspective, you're just burning off karma. But from a more non-spiritual perspective, it's like you're learning your lesson. So the more, if you go into the mindset, I'm trying to learn stuff, that'll help you alleviate that much faster. So write down your thoughts neutrally, binaural beats, and honestly, guided meditations are pretty cool too. They're pretty easy. Just plug in some headphones. I like these positive affirmation things. Something I really recommend doing is just go around wishing, and this happened to me personally. Like after I came back from the meditation retreat, it sounds super woo-woo and stuff, but like I go to the gym same time every morning, like 5:30, I'm there at the latest. When I came back after the meditation, I started wishing everyone peace, love, and happiness, which sounds it can be cringy, but like after I started doing that, people at the gym would be fist bumps, high fives on a much, much greater basis. I actually seen it work.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. You know, I do a lot of coaching for early stage, like people just getting started on building a business. And one of the big things that they have to develop is this ability for them to manage their thoughts, right? Because their thoughts, and so what they try to do is they try to get to a point where they're all positive and they have no negative thoughts. And that's just not realistic. But to your point, the idea is not to have no negative thoughts. The idea is to know what to do with them when they arrive. And we'll often talk about different techniques. You know, Byron Katie's stuff is really helpful here, but it's the noticing and it's the understanding and it's the ability to carry on your path without getting sidetracked by, you know, all of these beliefs or limiting, because those are all just our brain trying to keep us safe, right?
Yeah, those are, to loop Anthony back in, a strategy I like to use for all of my negative thoughts is accept, redirect, and act. And that can apply to business too. Like if something happens, what do you have to do? The first thing you have to do is accept. And then how do you turn the situation into positive? And once you figure out how to redirect, and then you actually have to act. So you can just do that on a thought basis. Like for me, like last year I was doing with the IRS. Super annoying. But I'm like, okay, well, I can't fight dealing with the IRS, except what do I have to do? Okay, I have to do this, X, Y, Z, I have to call this person, done, and then acted upon it. Whereas normally, like if I did have a spiritual practice, like, so I was stressed about the IRS for like a day. But like if I didn't have that, I put it off. It would have just been in the back of my mind for like a while. But because I thought of my Muay Thai coach, was like, what do you least want to do? Well, the least thing I want to do is deal with the IRS right now. So I accepted, redirected, acted, and dealt with it. And it actually worked out pretty well. The person I dealt with was super friendly.
That's witness relocation program for IRS.
All right, Eric, are you ready for the speed round?
Yes, sir.
These are really tough ones. First one, daily journaling or weekly reflection?
Daily journaling. Consistency is key. It's like working out. You work out every day or work out once a week.
Therapy or coaching?
Coaching.
Solo retreats or group workshops?
Solo retreats within a group. So like Vipassana was a solo practice, but group of the same people in the same area with the same energy, but it was a solo retreat.
Morning routine or evening routine?
Both. I have a morning routine, and then I have my nighttime routine, and whatever I do during the day is different, but those two are, having both set points is really helpful. So meditation morning, Muay Thai at night. And
probably the easiest question of the speed round, what do you work on first, inner work or outer work?
Oh, inner work, because the outer world is just a reflection of the inner world. It's like a mirror.
Awesome.
Like if you want to change a frown on the mirror, you can't change the mirror. You have to change yourself, and then it eventually changes.
This was a great. So, Stephanie, why don't you bring this home? See if you can give us some of the founder fundamentals to wrap this up.
Yeah, usually we do sort of 5. I've got 6, and I'm gonna just be a rebel, and I'm gonna do 6 because I love this topic and I love everything that Eric had to say. So, in order to grow yourself, you have to serve others. Like that is such an important piece, and it's along the lines of lead with love, right? If we can, I even think about this with my dog. Like, how can I make my dog's life better? And so when you have that mindset and that mentality, everything inside your business, whether it's the people that you are working with or the people that you serve, everything's going to benefit. The second point that I took away from our conversation was that the best tools to start with for building your self-awareness as a business owner, meditation. I loved the idea that your speech actually connects to your thoughts, and what you speak becomes your truth. Journaling and gratitude. And there's a lot of study that talks about gratitude and the effect that it has on your success. And then, along the same lines, getting started on a spiritual practice for somebody who's not really familiar with this and is a little bit kind of like Anthony and gets really uncomfortable with the idea of thinking about themselves at all. Some simple meditations, like meditation doesn't have to be some big complicated practice. What's really important is what you get out of the meditation. And so binaural beats, which are just audio, you can download an app. There's lots of apps for doing binaural beats. You can find them on Spotify. There's a really great app called Endel. Those are a really great place to just get started. And if you can have an open mind to just sit and listen and start there, that's a great place. Also taking small baby steps and also learning how to manage your thoughts and be aware of your thoughts and what they actually mean. The fourth point that I took away was this harmony of inner and outer purpose and where we start and how the two have a relationship to each other. And then the benefits inside the business of building this self-awareness and building this practice is being able to see it work inside the business and how it affects how you lead others, how you connect to your customers, how your products and your services evolve as a result of that. And also connecting to as your authentic self and feeling a lot more powerful inside your business because where it's coming from and all the work that you're doing is coming from a place that feels very, very aligned to your core. And then finally, this interesting conversation around the convergence of humanity and the technical or the business side, like always being conscious and aware of how those two things are becoming closer and closer together and how that impacts your business. Did I miss anything? Crayons. We talked about crayons.
Crayons. We need to talk about. All right, to deep dive. How do we learn about more about this? So, couple notes that I have. Obviously, we talked a little bit about Principles by Ray Dalio, Atomic Habits by James Clear is great. High Performance Habits by Brendan Bouchard. There's also a great podcast, The Knowledge Project, with Shane Parrish. And Eric, first, is there any other things that we should be looking at, like books or podcasts? And then also, where do we learn more about you?
Yeah, so a cool thing about books and podcasts is you can actually program the algorithms to help you. So if you start looking for self-help, spirituality, business, entrepreneurship books, you're eventually going to be surrounded by them. Obviously, Principles is really good. Atomic Habits, really good. I love those. One of my favorite books is The Almanac of Naval, or the whole Incierto series by Taleb. I think that was helpful. Spirituality-wise, the most helpful one for me is The Emerald Tablet by Hermes Trismegistus, and the Vipassana meditation was a retreat I went to. So if those interest you, feel free to check it out. If you want to learn more about me, my Instagram, Eric, ERICDMCHUGH, is the best bet because we can do the voice message, and I do like meeting people. But if you want to check out dating, it's in the App Store live. Aces.fun should go live in the future. And we're starting a fund called Hold On Labs, which is leveraging AI to crank out software products that actually help people. So those three is probably enough meat for people to look at.
Eric, thank you so much for joining us. This was a great conversation. Obviously, Stephanie, this is familiar territory. I am completely uncomfortable, and now I'm going to go freak my wife out by trying to meditate
or something.
Yeah, exactly right. Everybody that's listening, thank you for following us. The next show we're going to have is we're going to be talking about going from founder to CEO with author Betsy Pipeline. For all of you listening, thank you so much. Please go check out Eric. And for us, follow us on howtofounder.com, and you can check us out on all the show areas like LinkedIn and Spotify and Apple Podcast. We'll talk to you later. Eric, again, thank you so much. Bye, guys.